So you two, have you ever been on an episode together?
No.
But you've been in the same room.
We've been in the same backyard together.
Okay.
We've been in the same audience for a one-man show.
That's true.
In the back of a bookstore. I was there yesterday, or 2 days ago.
In the back of a bookstore? Or seeing my one-man
No,
show?
just at Moon Palace.
Oh, okay. I don't work there.
I know. Oh, sorry. Went to the wrong one.
Yeah, I work at a different bookstore.
Do you like visitors when you work at your bookstore?
I love visitors. My brother-in-law came in once. I didn't recognize him, and I almost sent him away without acknowledging that he was him until he was like, bye, Phil. And I was like, hey, Brad.
Oh.
Yeah. So if I don't recognize you and you come in, it's just because I'm not used to seeing you out of context.
I could just like come in here with one of these on and then like...
Yes!
And guess what my cat is doing right now? So if we could kill some time for a few seconds. Because she's going...
I can't see your cat.
Well, here's the thing. My cat is using a robot litter box, which will be very loud after she's done with this. And right now she's scratching the box because she does not like to cover with litter.
Yes.
So she scratches
I can't
nothing.
hear her at all. So
that's because my mic is very expensive and Josh Pike paid for it with our Patreon money.
Is she done?
She seems like she is. The other cat might come in and try to steal the poop, so I'm going to just quickly remove it.
What is this Animal Farm
I won't explain
situation?
that.
That's going to be a bonus feature.
What? Me walking away?
You walking and taking care of the cat poops.
Hopefully the other cat does not come in here and poop now or try to steal the current poop.
That's fine. Just let it go. Just sometimes you just got to let them have those poops.
No, I don't, because reasons.
Reasons that are not pertinent to our discussion
on
bullies.
Standing up to bullies.
Yes. Let me pull this up. I must have closed out of it.
Stand up to bullying.
Do they? Is that...
That is one of the main questions, isn't it?
One of the main questions of this book. Well, first of all, before we get started, Mark, Brian, would you read "Who Are You Mocking?" And Mark, would you read "At Whom Do You Sneer and Stick Out Your Tongue?"
Sure. Okay. Let me get in character.
Get in character.
Who are you mocking?
At whom do you sneer and stick out your tongue?
Isaiah 57:4. And this is where the music comes. But I'm having trouble.
It's hard to stand up to somebody who's too tall.
I think that's the point.
Wow. I just got it when I said it out loud, actually.
He is too tall. He is too tall of a child.
I think it's pituitary.
I can't.
Do bears have pituitaries?
Pituitol? There we go.
Pituitol.
Welcome back to Deep in Bear Country, a Berenstain Bearcast. I am your host, Phil Gonzalez, and I am here with two of the smartest boys in boydom. Here to talk about Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, or bullying. I don't really understand the point of this. Like, this book is kind of all over the place, and I don't know if it ever quite settles on a point or makes the point it thinks it's making or needed to happen in the first place. You ever wonder who bullies the bullies? Well, I've brought in two good souls to help me figure out why you should care if a member of a roving band of horrible children is mean to each other. Welcome back to the show, everyone. Two guests who've been on many a time, but never at the same time. Mark and Brian. Hello, Mark and Brian.
Hello, Phil.
Hello, Mark. Hello, Phil.
Hello, Brian.
Hello, Brian. Hello, Mark. That's it. That's all I've got.
Hello, Mark.
I think we made the mistake. We made the mistake of being in the same chat at one point. I think is what happened, and that's when I demanded you be on the shows together.
I can't follow all your machinations and schemes. They mostly involve GIFs, but yes. I'm sure that's where it got. It started from the seed.
But to be fair, they also involve meta-generated stickers of Alf hanging out with various political celebrities. When it meshes, it meshes. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark and Brian and I seem to have similar thought processes when it comes to social media, I guess. Is that how it works?
That's how podcasts get started.
Yes.
That's how every podcast I've ever done has been started.
Yes. So we've all been in the hot seat, though. We've all been discussing the Bears before. So I don't have to set anything up for you guys. I know that you guys are huge Berenstain Bear fans. You're huge Deep in Bear Country fans. You keep me going. You keep me feeling good. So what's this book that we're discussing today?
Well, it's the Berenstain Bears Stand Up to Bullying.
Yeah. The second bullying book the Bears have ever done.
Now, was the first one also one of the religious books?
No. God, no.
That first one is kind of infamous, and it's changed ending. And I believe you even had a bully expert or someone who expert.
Yes, I believe so.
On your show?
I did. I had Jason Buckland was on the show. I tried to get him on again at some other point, and I could not get a hold of him. He is a busy man. But the original book was about a little girl who was a bully, and she was pushing around the younger kids. So brother taught sister how to punch very hard, and sister punched the little girl in the face and bloodied her nose. And then in the very end, you find out that the little girl was getting beaten up at home by her parents, and she was sent away, and we never heard from her again. And that was the bullying book. Sometimes you've just got to beat up little kids who have bad family experiences.
Kids do have bad family experiences. You shouldn't punch them.
No. Well, you shouldn't.
I shouldn't. How many sons did that book have in it?
How many glorious coats of many colors did it have in it?
This would almost seem like it's one book and then it's another book.
Yeah. Well, Phil, I was kind of hoping that since it was called Standing Up to Bullying or Stand Up to Bullying, I was hoping that maybe, Mike heard your podcast and maybe brought some new ideas to the table.
I think Mike is a huge Donny Osmond fan, and he brought that to the table because if there's one story that doesn't really have a whole lot to do with bullying as we think of it in the 21st century, it's the story of Joseph and his brothers, which we'll get to. But also the implication of this book would seem to be that Joseph himself was a bully. And that he was because that's the parallel they set. Let's talk about the Berenstain Bears Stand Up to Bullying. Are you guys ready?
I'm sitting, but I'm ready to stand up.
All right, because I have to figure out, hold on one sec. I'm trying to do something with my screen here, and it's not working properly. Can you give me
try to do a star wipe or something?
I'm desperately trying to
make little hearts appear on the screen. They float to the top.
Okay, so if I do this and I do this, every time I try to share my screen, the wrong thing
this is
happens.
just like work again.
I'm going to try to do it this way because I can't figure out how to do it any other way. And I am loath to work hard. So let me turn this off. I'm going to share this. I'm going to share screen. I'm going to do this. Can everyone see this?
I see a little you, and then I see the book.
Can you see
me?
Yes.
I see Mark, and I'm going to go into a full romper room segment here, which may not be culturally Midwest or Texas.
I know what romper room is.
Okay, I'm just making sure. You're
very dark, Brian.
Well, it's dark in here, and it wasn't when I started. I mean, I'm afraid to turn the. Will this help? That did nothing.
That did. You look a little more ruddy. It makes your cheeks look a little ruddier.
Yeah, it makes my I have jowls. That's kind of fun.
That's good. Are you ready to stand up to bullying?
Yes.
This is 2018 Stand Up to Bullying by Mike Berenstain. It's a Living Lights faith story. We start off with Too Tall and the gang, Vinny, Smirk, and Scuzz. So, gang, what's this book about?
Standing up to bullying to some degree.
Is it?
I mean, if you want to take a literal interpretation of just the title, if you were to sit down with your child and pick up the book, you would go, I am going to read them a story where the Berenstain Bears stand up to bullying.
Yeah.
And then you would kind of maybe somewhat read that book to them, and they would go, I'm going to just kind of think about that book. And maybe I'm too young to figure out all the parallels and how they work. But if I was older, this would make incredible sense to me.
And so for a more practical direction, what's this book about?
it's kind of about infighting. Is it?
At a bullying level, I guess? So it starts off with Too Tall in the Gang being too tall in the gang, shoving children around. And like that's all the intro we get to them. We know that they're trouble.
Now, have you got, and this is probably early to introduce this, but were either of you bullied as a young child?
Is that a yes, Mark?
Yes, I experienced bullying, sure.
Yeah. And you, Brian, any?
I was a small child, believe it or not, and I was bullied somewhat by not the big kids, but smaller kids who thought they could punch a little bit down.
Yeah. How small were you?
I don't remember. I was always the height I am now, I guess. In my head, like
at one point that would have been very tall.
I would have been too tall. No, like I didn't measure myself that often. I was just always smaller than the other kids.
So you were what people would have been like, oh, there's the small kid.
Yeah, well, I don't know if your schools had this, but our school, at least in the later grades, they brought in new desks, not the wooden ones that were all one piece, but like a chair and a desk. Mm-hmm. And they were like, okay, we have tall ones for the tall kids who are too tall. We have the normal size kids for the mid kids. And then for the 3 smallest little ones who will sit in front of the class, we have the tiny desks. And I was very upset that I was going to really stand out with how small I was with that desk. And it was a point of mockery. And then eventually
why would they do that? Like, do you need that level of specificity as far as like child height goes?
I don't believe so, because halfway through the year, one of the students moved away who had a mid-sized desk, and I was able to upgrade through a lottery with the other 3 kids to the mid-sized desk. And guess what? It fit fine.
Wait, so it had nothing. What it sounds to me like is they're just like, we have a set number of desks for the classroom. We got
it's
3.
A very small. It is a school where the gym was so small that I could almost dunk the basketball because I could almost reach the roof of the gym.
So it sounds like they had 3 small desks and they just had to use them. And then once that middle-sized child was kicked to the curb or whatever, what was it like?
It was my time. It was my time to shine, or at least fade into the everyone regular kid missed, and not be pointed out every single day that I was smaller than, especially the other boys, as the other 2 smaller kids were girls. So that was.
And you know, everyone just know that this was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago, but yeah,
there were gender politics at play.
Yes, but now I have never, as an adult, been upset about my height because air travel is easier, and that's kind of all you need in life.
So,
Mark, that was a little bullying.
You got picked on as well.
I mean, yeah, sure. I was, a weird theater kid. Got picked on.
I see.
And
Okay.
Phil, not that you were a weird theater kid or anything, Phil, but did you have any experience?
No. I just generally wasn't picked on. I just don't think that. I mean, probably people made fun of me at some point, but I just don't think we had that kind of culture at our school.
I had an orange thrown at my head once.
Maybe it's because I was like class clowny, or like I was like the not the cut up, but like kind of I was the wry observational kid, and I think that they were like, we can't pick on Phil. We need his like bon mots. We need him to put things into perspective for us so that we can laugh at life.
That's a beautiful sentiment.
I've had all my friends
that children have that deep of thoughts about the entertainment dynamic in their classroom. I would say, though, besides having an orange thrown in my head, which is still confusing to me, not a natural bullying thing to happen. Especially today, I don't feel like bullying is as much shoving as portrayed in books. Like physically just pushing.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do a shoulder check, but like a full palm shoving, that's dangerous for a kid to do these days. That can get you kicked out of school.
Right. I feel like there is an element of like sort of 80s Stephen King bullying still present in the Berenstain Bears world, where bullies stand on the sidewalk and like crack their knuckles and like shake you down for lunch money, as opposed to like...
If only they could find a common ground through both of them loving the same rock and roll music.
Or if they had learned how to settle their differences through breakdancing, as the Olympics taught us to do.
That's not even time stamping it at to like this part of the summer. It's several months ago or weeks ago. Who can tell? It's been a long summer.
Well, Too Tall and the gang are equal opportunity bullies. They shove and push everyone. They're just a bunch of bullies. And it all comes to a head. So the kids go to the farm. I covered the farm last week. It was a Lift the Flat book. And I don't know if you were there. I don't know if you saw. But brother and sister and mama and papa and honey all went to the farm and met the animal. Well, now we're going to go to the farm and meet the devil because... They go to the farm, and what do they see but Too Tall and the gang forcing Scuzz, who is the one in the whoopee cap, just we're clarifying that for once and for all, forcing Scuzz to climb a tree and throw not an orange at Brian, but an apple to the boys.
It's not the same thing, honestly. You can't compare the two.
The apple to orange. Oh.
He walked right into it. He walked into it so hard.
How would you like it if somebody stole your apples? There's my reference to the Wizard of Oz.
So how do you like those apples?
I got a number. How do you like them apples? Or if you're going to reference
Good
Goodwill Hunting 2 hunting season, applesauce. That's from a Jay and Silent Bob movie. Anyway, moving on. Speaking of bullies, Kevin Smith. So they send Scuzz up into a tree. So what's happening here? What's the dynamic here? What are we learning about these boys?
That sometimes the bullies get bullied by the bullies. Sorry. Is that dramatic?
I did that. They do a chicken dance around Scuzz because he doesn't want to go up in the tree.
No child can withstand that.
Marty McFly couldn't withstand that.
He couldn't.
Marty McFly almost got into a car accident that changed his future because he couldn't withstand that.
He should learn a lesson, but how?
Successful Broadway musical.
Maybe some Bible verses, maybe.
They do the chicken dance in that musical?
Cha-cha! They do it. They do the chicken.
So there's a pecking order in this pickled peck.
God, you're making me so sad.
I'm sorry.
I guess the bullied has become the bully. Mark looks stressed out. Were you ever forced to climb a tree?
No. Sorry. I never was. Never was forced to climb a tree. Not an apple tree or an oak tree.
Okay.
Did you ever do it for, recreation?
Yeah. Were you a tree climber, Mark?
I've climbed high in some trees, but I don't think it was a hobby of mine.
I think Mark's climbing high right now. I don't know what's going on.
I like that he's being cagey about it. It makes it more interesting.
Mark and I have a history of discussing books about trees. We've discussed the showdown at Chainsaw Gap a few times on this show. And so maybe Mark's...
2 weeks in a row.
2 weeks in a row. And then you came back for the weird retelling of it. So 3 episodes about Chainsaw Gap in which the bears tried to keep a tree from getting cut down. This is a story about a bears trying to send a boy up into a tree to get them food, and they pick on him, cha-cha-cha, and force him to climb up, but he's terrified of heights. He slips on a branch, and he falls, catches himself by the knees, which is pretty impressive.
I could not do that. Not then, not now, not ever.
No. Caught himself full weight falling by his knees and starts screaming for help. A child in distress. At this point, this has gone to me, this is no longer just bullying. This is real.
Someone could break a limb, not just a tree limb.
Yes. No one breaks a tree limb in this book, by the way. Spoilers, the trees are okay. If you look it up on www.doesthetreedie.com, the tree is okay in this book. Does the bully die is another question. Because if you fall head first out of an apple tree, you're in trouble. You're physically in danger.
You will break your crown.
Man. I'm just...
Why is everything I'm saying?
What
I'm hitting you like a rod.
I
know. Obviously, Brian read ahead and came up with some real zingers.
I just kind of walked around for an hour beforehand and just got out my zinger book. How can I upset Phil, my good friend, who I would like to have invite me onto the show again?
Well, he does not fall down. Well, does he fall down and break his crown? I don't remember. So Scuzz falls. This might be the first time we've ever seen Scuzz without his whoopee cap.
He looks very different than the other bears.
He does. You see, you learn why he's always wearing that hat. It's because his head's disgusting. So the everything, things go from bad to worse. The bullies start making fun of Scuzz, flapping their arms, saying he's a bird. Brother's going to go put a stop to things. Why those
punch them very hard?
Yes, because we know that that's how Brother takes care of bullies. You punch them as hard as you can in the face, which wouldn't help Scuzz in this situation.
I wonder, like, have you ever like walked near an apple tree and go, hungry? When someone one of our group go about getting one of these apples to sate my appetite?
Well, these are the bears who stole a pumpkin. They did steal pumpkins.
Did they eat the pumpkin?
I don't think it's about the eating.
You think it's more about mastery over nature?
Yes.
Have you been to an apple orchard?
Many times.
It's not like there aren't apples all over the ground,
right,
everywhere.
And those are the juiciest ones to get.
You
They're
think
marinated.
Too Tall and the gang should eat the windblown apples, like the ones that like the crows have been at?
Like ground apples, like potatoes.
Yes. The ones that have already started fermenting.
Have you seen kids in an apple orchard? They'll eat any of those apples.
Kids will eat anything.
Listen, your example is one. Your kid will eat any apple off the apple ground. My child hates going to the apple orchard. Both of them.
What apple tree has apples too tall? Like, those branches are down in your face.
That's true.
You would think if, apple trees, not huge, child, named too tall.
Right.
The perfect combination.
Well, and
you can get all of them.
The concept of the apple orchard is that you can walk around and just pick the apples. Like, yes, in like Cider House Rules, you climb a ladder to get to the really tippy top one.
The delicious ones where God hides them from man.
Right. Where Michael Caine or something, I don't know, he was in that movie. Spider-Man was in it too. Not the character, the boy.
Well, he would have got up there very easily.
Thanks, Spider-Man. He's like, apples? No. Cider-Man, Spider-Man, Cider House, ladders. So, yes, usually...
Jacob's Ladder.
Jacob's Ladder, the Bible, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. Usually apples are within, grabbing distance, especially, as you said, from an incredibly tall child. Like, even Dorothy could reach the apples.
You're right. And it's like, we're not asking them to walk into a vineyard and just pick up grapes. But apples, you can get a few.
You can get a few. Or just shake the tree.
Yeah,
Can't you shake the tree?
Just run to the tree as hard as you can.
Hit the tree, kick the tree. Or as Mark says, just eat them off the ground like an animal.
Or take one that's on the ground like an animal and throw it at the ones in the tree to knock the good ones.
Throw it at the branch. There's so many ways you can steal apples from a hardworking farmer.
And then God does not have to get involved.
They're bears. They're animals.
They are animals.
They are. If you ever seen a bear in the forest ever eating an apple, it just doesn't happen.
That's true.
I've literally never saw it. I've also never looked up YouTube videos for that.
They eat honey.
Honey, HUNY.
Garbage.
Yeah, garbage. Love garbage.
And
just like Heathcliff.
Picnic basket.
Yes. Just, Mr. Ranger, sir.
All right, we got to make it to this next page.
No, we don't, Mark. Let's continue on this page.
Brian has more quotes from Hanna-Barbera classics for us.
Let's talk about all their hats.
Mrs. Ben is hiding in a tree. She's been hiding in a tree.
And inside the hollow trunk. What? Why would you ever do that?
Right. Because she had to have been in there earlier.
Would it be growing apples if it had an actively hollow trunk?
She's hiding inside a hollowed out apple tree.
Bugs Bunny situation where she can travel underground and pop up entry
Kalamazoo.
Yep.
Boise, Idaho.
If I remember correctly from my Stranger Things viewing, this is how you reach the upside down. You go through a hollow tree at one point. So I don't know where Mrs. Ben's been, but I do know that we are getting a Farmer Ben free story here that's focusing on the delightful Mrs. Ben for once. So let's enjoy this. She grabs Too Tall by the scruff of his neck. and
Ouch.
and berates him.
He calls them varmints.
She does call them varmints. Gotcha, you varmints. Lucky I heard you coming into the orchard and hid myself. Does she hide whenever anyone comes in the orchard?
That would kind of be my hobby if I had an orchard.
Again, how big around is your average orchard apple tree?
Well, Mark's the expert. He's gone and picked up some apples off the ground. What have you-
Mark, as you're snuffling around on the ground for windblown apples, eating
They're a delicacy.
eating nature's cider.
Yeah. Average tree, definitely not as round as a person.
Right.
I would say. Yeah.
Like
Was the tree in Ernest Scared Stupid that had the troll, was that an apple tree?
I believe that was some sort of troll tree or make-believe tree.
Well, one of those two is true, but I don't believe the second one.
Did you know they're coming out with an Ernest P. Worrell comic book to continue the continuity of the Ernest P. Worrell movies?
Did you just make that up
No.
to see if I would believe you? 'Cause
No.
I've been teasing you for much of the episode.
No, there is an Ernest comic book coming out, and I'm like, without like the guy doing it, it kind of lacks the
physical
charm.
comedy and charisma.
And now I'm like, are they going to do like a Pee Wee Herman comic book? Like,
Right, that's the.
is that the next thing?
That is absolutely the next thing.
Like, that just kind of makes me feel weird. Like, it kind of loses, it's going to lose something. I don't know. I guess Stan and Jan Berenstain passed on their creation. Why not Pee Wee Herman?
Why not Ernest P. Worrell?
Why not? I mean, okay, but I will say this. Ernest P. Worrell was not owned by Jim Varney. That was a character created by a writer. So, by rights, anyone should be able to step into that hat and talk to Vern.
Vern has not passed away.
Right,
as far
Vern's
as
still
we
with
know.
us. Give him another neighbor.
Ernest goes to an apple orchard.
Ernest
Mrs. Vern.
Ernest hides in an apple tree. Right? Isn't it about time we had a woman Ernest?
You're ruining my childhood.
Get on that, Sony, because they're the masters of franchises. They know how to keep a franchise alive. How was that new
Spider-Man.
Ghostbusters film? I haven't seen it.
I have not seen it. How is Phil? How is that possible that you and I, of all the human beings on the planet Earth, have not seen the newest Ghostbuster movie?
My heart just died when it came to like franchises. I was just like
I didn't see the last one before it either. I looked at it, I'm like, no, I have what I need,
yeah,
which is this nice little ghost here.
you have a little.
You can't
ghost.
see it in the dark because I thought it would be daylight well into 9 p.m. in my office.
You can't. I do have.
It's darker behind you, honestly.
I have Winston Zeddemore here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he's disappearing. There he goes. Just like a ghost.
Where'd he go?
Just like a ghost. Here he
This
goes.
is great. This book is fantastic.
We haven't even gotten to the good part of the book yet. So Mrs.
Not as thick as your skull, I warrant.
Don't worry about Scuzz. He has a thick skull. If he falls, it won't hurt him much. Not as thick as your skull, I'll warrant, snorted Mrs. Ben. She forces the bullies to help their friend out of the tree. She sees brother and his siblings there, and she's like, hello there, Cubs. I was expecting you. Which I think she means because she knew they were coming over, but it feels like she's like, well, there's a story involved. I guess the main characters are going to show up now. Like,
They've
there's a
been kind of
lesson to be
past-
learned.
Yeah, I guess they've been kind of a passive audience to the book
Yeah.
so far.
Is that what they mean by standing up? Just
Yes.
They were sitting down. They're like, "Oh hi, you just came out of a tree stump."
Maybe I have a theory.
You have a theory?
We'll
About
have to
what?
finish the book before we can discuss it, though. But maybe,
Well, that's gonna take a long time.
maybe Mrs. Ben is the bullet.
She is kind of like abrasive in her
yeah.
verbal abuse of these very young children.
She hides in a tree and jumps out at a bunch of children. She grabs one by the scruff of the neck and then, hurls abuse at them. That's more than they've done. Who bullies the bullies? The bigger bullies.
Right.
It's a circle of bullies.
Yep.
It's like if your kids
The
were
bully
being
chain.
if kids were being naughty in a playroom, and all of a sudden they went up to the toy trunk, which the toy trunk, and the teacher popped out of it and started grabbing them all and smacking them.
Yes. That is exactly what I was thinking of. A teacher.
Of course.
A teacher popping out of a toy trunk and grabbing children
Calling them varmints.
and calling them varmints.
They
So
just wanted
He
apples.
can only visualize adults popping out of trunks.
I thought you said Trumps.
I wanted to keep it within the trunk family.
He likes thinking about trunks and wells. All right, let's move on.
Let's move on. I was expecting you. And sister says, oh, I never realized that bullies even bully each other sometimes. I didn't know bullies got bullied by bullies. I do want to point out that the picture of the cubs, the bullies rescuing Scuzz from the tree, is one of my favorite Berenstain Bears illustration. They're making some fun faces. Everyone's making some pretty fun faces.
Agreed.
I agreed. Like he's blown up. They had the correct bear for the job.
Yes.
Of the being underneath Scuzz.
Yes. Anyone can be the victim of bullying. This is what Mrs. Ben is saying. And there hangs...
That should be the end of the book. On that line right there.
And there hangs a tale, just like this youngin' hanging from that apple tree, which sounds a lot darker.
Yes, that does sound...
And they're like, oh, you mean Scuzz? She's like, no. I mean this youngin' hanging from... It's like, sweeps back. You're like, oh, God.
He's an example for all of you.
I don't know if what I was thinking of was necessarily darker, but it was less violent.
You don't know what you're not inside my brain.
Did you cubs ever hear the story of Joseph and his brothers?
Bam, 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 bam. Sorry, I had to do it. Smoke fills the orchard.
Smoking! Way, way back many centuries ago, not long after the Bible began, Jacob lived in the land of Canaan, a fine example of a family man. I'm not going to go that high. Yes, we are about to get the story of Joseph, the amazing Technicolor Dreamboat. Long ago in the Holy Land was a man named Jacob. He was just some guy. We don't need to get specific about this. He had 12 sons. Mark named the sons.
Is it Karen?
Just sing the song.
I was in that show twice in my life. It was my senior musical. I actually played a brother twice.
Which brother?
Levi. I played Levi.
Oh, Simeon and Levi were next in line.
Mm-hmm.
Naphtali and Issachar and Asher and Dan, Zebulun and Gad brought the total to 9.
Total to 9.
Benjamin and Judah, which leaves only one. Jacob and sons. Joseph, Jacob's favorite son. Joseph's Jacob's favorite son. Jacob and son. Jacob and sons. Jacob and sons. Jacob and sons. That's Tim Rice's lyrics.
Tim Rice. You know I love Tim Rice.
A steaming bowl of that rice. Yum, 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 yum. Eat up those complex lyrics. Sorry, what were you talking?
I wish they had changed it to Jacob, just to make it a little bit more. I had to do one.
I don't even think that's a bad idea.
I mean, like, they have done nothing, but it's just the Bible story.
It's just the Bible. I think that Mike Berenstain is like, you know what? I'm not touching the names of the patriarchs. I think I'm going to let that go. Like,
I don't know. Tisk, tisk, tisk.
We're going to let that go. What?
I wanted to point out on this page, I think there's an error.
What's the error?
It says, but his favorite was the youngest Joseph. And Benjamin was actually younger than Joseph, right? They were both born from the same mother.
Right. He wasn't the youngest. He was just the favorite.
Yeah.
But in Bear World...
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you. You've saved us all.
Oh, it's okay that bears can talk, but not that Joseph can be the youngest brother.
I mean,
sorry
I was
to be
thinking
such a pendant.
Here's an interesting factoid that I learned from a rabbi I follow on Substack. Joseph's coat of many colors, the Hebrew term for it that is used, the way it's described, is only used like twice in the Torah, and the other time it's used, it's explicitly and like structurally used to refer to women's garments, which adds a whole other layer to the clothing that Joseph wanted to wear, Jacob's tolerance of his son's desires, and his brothers being horrible bullies to him. Speaking of which, they're such bullies, they sell him into slavery.
Tisk, tisk.
Yeah, but okay, we can get to it later. There's
But-
there's an equivalency thing going on here in her storytelling.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
So she has said, they're like, I didn't know bullies could bully bullies. And she's like, well, let me tell you a story about the biggest bully of all, a young boy named Joseph, who got bullied by some bullies himself. Like, that would seem to be the equivalence we're drawing here. Because that's... what?
But like, it's not like this gives the idea to Tootal that he could sell scuzz
Right. Chattel slavery, which does not exist in the history of Bear Country,
No.
does exist. Well, slavery does exist in their Bible. So yes, the concept is there. And since it's biblical slavery, that does mean that it's not based on like class or social status. It's just you could sell your brother. And since Scuzz, Smirk, Vinny, and Tootal are essentially brothers from other mothers.
Brothers in arms.
Brothers in arms, if you will.
They all have arms.
Bear arms, which they have the right to bear.
They do. Attached to their trunks.
No, elephants have trunks. Bears have snoots.
They're the middle of their body could be called the trunk of the body.
Snouts. I couldn't think of anything funny to say. I was trying to keep it going, but there's nothing funny about snouts.
No, there's nothing, but they're kind of cute.
There's only one snout that I care about. Max Rebos. So,
I thought you were going to break into an ad read right there.
I wish I had ads. So Joseph gets sold into slavery somehow. Then years later, he gains. Sorry. Tootal has a comment to make about Joseph being sold into slavery in the land of Egypt, which is wow, harsh. Years later, Joseph gains his freedom. Some stuff happens. He meets his brothers again. At first, he's angry. Then he feels
I
sorry.
believe he had some dreams, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe in the middle of all this, the story of Joseph happens.
Yes, but skip that. Get to the end.
An Elvis impersonator shows up, sings some songs.
Yep.
There's a really
Go
uncomfortable
dancing.
sequence with Potiphar's wife if you're watching like children perform the show, which happens far too often. There's some pop numbers set to sound like popular tunes of the day, a few reprises. You wonder
Calypso.
how this 30-minute cantata got stretched out into an hour and a half long 2-act play. And then Joseph forgives his brothers. Mm-hmm. After hiding a cup or something. It's a long story.
Mm-hmm.
That's nice.
And that's what Scuzz says.
I'm kind of the scuzz of the podcast today.
You are.
Don't scuzz yourself.
I don't know. I took my hat off.
That's true. And we wonder why you had to wear it in the first place.
Couldn't see it anyways. It's just getting darker in here.
It is just getting darker in there.
Brian's getting swallowed by the darkness.
Right. It's like never-ending story.
It's kind of upsetting myself too. I look at that guy up there. I'm like, what? That guy is just in the dark.
They sell ring lights. Maybe you should ask Josh for one.
We don't have a Patreon anymore.
Oh,
I can't just ask him for free things. Though I did give him free room and board.
you did give him
Took
free room and board.
And I took him to the Spam Museum.
I think that deserves one ring light.
One ring light.
So Tootal and the gang are embarrassed. I don't know why Scuzz is looking so embarrassed.
He just fell out of it. He almost accomplished his goal, and he didn't fall. He's had a good day.
Yeah. Mrs. Ben is like, you don't want to be like the brothers of Joseph, do you? And they're like, no. And she's like, your friend could have been hurt falling out of that tree. I guess like Joseph? I don't understand. Like, it really falls apart. And they're like, we don't want Scuzz to get hurt much. And this is the way Tootal stories always end up. He always ends up not learning the lesson and leaving it just apparent that he's just going to continue being a bully. Like, he's like, I will hit Scuzz in the face later when you're not around.
She could be in any tree, though.
When I'm no longer surrounded by forest. But Tootal's like, I don't want Scuzz to get hurt much. And then she's like, let's eat some pie. We'll have no more of this confounded bullying, understood? And they all say yes. No one crossed Mrs. Ben when she was offering her special apple pie. And that's the way the story ends. It's not even like they all felt better about each other. It's like, well, as long as Mrs. Ben was holding something they wanted, they wouldn't dare cross her.
What makes the pie special, do you think? Ground apples?
I mean, if you mean like ground apples, yes.
Applesauce.
Applesauce pie.
Applesauce pie.
Can you make applesauce pie? Do you know what I had this weekend? I went to Sebastian Joe's and I got
That's an ice cream shop.
I got a warm, handheld pastry stuffed with ice cream. An ice cream hand pie. That's what I had this weekend. And you know what? It was really good.
Would you include that place on an ice cream crawl?
No, because I don't know how to ride a bike.
Hey, so we hit the end of the book, but I think we've got a big question. Who did the standing up? Who stood
up to bullying?
The Cubs were never, one, bullied.
No.
Nor active participants in the plot.
Is it Mrs. Ben here at the end with her pie? Is that what standing up to bullying is?
Or was Mrs. Ben the bully? And is the way you stand up to it by accepting it, taking the pie when offered, and beating up your friends when the bully's not looking? Because it seems that the point that gets made, she says, the bullies are beating up their own friend. Here's the story of Joseph, kind of. We'll tell you the part where his brothers beat him up and sell him into slavery. Then he forgives them. You don't want to be like Joseph's brothers and bully someone, do you? And they're like, no, I mean, we're still going to beat him up. But later, like that gets said. And then she's like, have some pie. And they're like, okay, as long as you're here, we'll be nice. And that's the end of the book.
Yeah, I mean, they could have you could just have her come out of the tree stump, pull out a rolling TV on a cart with a VHS, say, hey, you bullies, here's a copy of Chicago on VHS. Let's watch it all the way through. And then it finishes and they're like, huh. And she's like, here's some pie. If you guys bully each other in front of me, I'll smack you. The end.
They're probably like, huh. Like, you wouldn't think that Renee Zellweger could pull it off, and she doesn't seem like she'd be strong, like, in a stage production, but the camera loves her. And
her singing kind of is part of the character.
Right. So it works. And I really appreciate everything that was done with the story. It's a shame the director never hit these heights again.
And Spuzz is like, sometimes I feel like a cellophane man.
Yeah, yes, a more apt. She could have been like, now in the musical Chicago, there's a character who calls himself Mr. Cellophane because he doesn't feel appreciated. That would make more sense as this book. Not that this book is actually about a musical, but it should have been. Speaking of which, we started watching the original film of The Wiz last night, which I haven't seen since I was a kid. That movie's not very good. Like, it's terrifying. And also, those songs are long.
So my memory of that also from childhood was that movie was scary, and those songs are quite long.
The songs are quite long.
Are they? Is it entertaining to watch?
It's 40 minutes before you get to ease on down the road.
Does it have a funky apple tree?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think any apples grow in there, Oz, because it's like just the blasted out remains of an inner city.
I have a structural amendment I would do with this book.
Good.
Involve the end, perfect. Wouldn't touch the whole Bible story, the whole Technicolor Dreamcoat. Makes perfect sense. Why would you ever change a thing? You don't need all three cups, right? Because they don't do anything.
Brother and sister and honey, you mean?
Yeah, so just have sister. Just sister, because she's the one who's confused over a hierarchy of bullying within the bully social structure. And when she comes across them in the orchard, she, a smaller child, hides inside a tree trunk. And then an adult could simply walk out of the house or barn instead of appearing out of a tree like the monster from Sleepy Hollow.
So simplify.
Just simplify, but keep the bones of the tree, because trees have bones, and just you have to keep that ending, because the story would make no sense if you changed it from a Bible story about Joseph, Jacob, and
son
Jingleheimer Schmidt. It has to be that. Otherwise, the kids will get nothing from this. I'm just saying, I'm a little thrown off by the adult inside an apple tree.
Right.
That was the only problem you had with this book.
That is the only. Otherwise, the art's beautiful. I want to go to that orchard.
It is a tasty orchard.
I mean, I would just grab apples off that tree. I could probably reach them.
Hey,
I'm
you
taller
kids.
than a bear.
Stop grab appling is what I would say.
That's not a thing.
Grab apple.
Stop saying that.
Mark, how would you fix this book?
Well, thank you for asking, Phil. Good question. I think that, what they highlighted about the Joseph story was like the act of forgiveness, and
Yes.
then they just steamrolled to the end of the story. I guess I wanted to see the Cubs try to forgive each other. Just, if this is going to be a Living Lights special, like, why wasn't there a special little moment of forgiveness? That being said, do kids ever forgive each other?
No, it's not in their nature. Well, and that's the thing is, so like the Scuzz story seems to be your friends are a group of friends are picking on a member of their group. That's not cool. Guys, chill out. Like that's a lesson to teach. Like you may think I'm reminded of a little boy when I was in junior high. There was a kid on the bus who was really tiny. He always got picked on by he got picked on by the group that he hung out with. Like they were just constantly ragging on him. But he was the little kid in the group, and so they just picked on him incessantly until one day he snapped and he started screaming at them on the bus, and he ran to the front of the bus and he grabbed the door open handle and he started screaming obscenities. This little boy. And he demanded the bus stop. The bus driver had to stop the bus because the boy was up. The boy opened the door and ran off. And we were like, what? And it was that whole, like, I guess he got pushed too far. And so that's what I was thinking of. I'm like, there's a lesson there. Like, you may think this kid's enjoying it. Like, that's his role in the game. But no one's really enjoying that. Like, they're just acting that way. Because they don't want to get picked on anymore, or they don't want to, like, be a whiner or whatever. But that's not cool. It's not cool to have that kid in your group. And unfortunately, the story of Joseph Dreamboat doesn't like address that. Like that's not what that story's about. That story's about like the kid who got picked on growing up into being like almost as powerful as Pharaoh, and then having the grace to forgive his bullies like 20 years later.
Right.
Like maybe they're getting together at the school reunion.
Right.
What
The end of this
Bible
book flashes forward
Right.
20 years.
And weirdly, Too Tall is the shortest now. Right. It's ironic, really.
Oh, these bears, they hit quite a growth spurt after or the bullies
all-
are the only successful ones.
They all meet at Mrs. Ben's funeral.
It's like,
And then she
what, like
pops out of
Big Chill?
Like Big Chill, that's what I was going to say.
It's like the Big Chill, but for the farmer's wife.
So this book was a lot like The Big Chill.
Yes, you find out that Smirk was like injured in Vietnam or whatever. Can't have kids. I think that's what happens.
Smirk.
So if going off what Brian said, if like it's like brother and sister going through the woods to the bends and maybe finding Scuzz stuck in the tree because who's been left there by his supposed friend, and then like what happened? Like where's all your friends who are usually out with you? And he's like, they ditched me in the tree. I can't get out. And then they have to go like find the gang who are like, we didn't think you'd be mad, like that kind of thing. Like
Or even like it ended up being like more of a story of forgiveness or something. It's always tough for me, and I know this is for kids, and kids aren't going to react to it like this. But like when like the adult goes, "All right, bullies, let me tell you a Bible story," and they're all like, "Yes,
yeah.
oh, like this, I've never heard this," and they're doing like tisk tisk and harsh. Like they're one step away from saying, "No way," and then she goes, "Way."
Yes. Yeah.
But like, I don't know how you could structure the first part to match the second part without a 20-year gap. But he did draw a really nice coat.
He did draw a really nice. That's my thing. I think that Mike just wanted to draw Joseph. I think he just wanted to draw the Dreamcoat and then fashion. I do remember him mentioning this book when it was in the pre-planning stages, or he had just submitted it. It was years ago because he has to write these things like way in advance. I do remember him saying something about it and being like, yeah, there's a story coming. I have a book coming out that uses Joseph to talk about bully. And he was really excited about the idea of like covering the fact that bullies get bullied too. But I think it would have worked better without the Bible story side. Like if you just could tell a whole story about that, like, wow, Too Tall and his gang are even being mean to one of the kids. And the kids trying kind of working it out among themselves. Like, I don't know, like Give Scuzz his day in the sun.
Would you read this to your child if you knew your child was a bully to try to figure out how to make them stop being a bully?
Well, A, my youngest child is 13, but and B, my youngest child is a bully. No, although she's closer to that side than she is the other side.
She's thrown me some dirty looks for like a smartass comment I've made once or twice, but she was when she's much smaller though.
I do not think this book would be useful to read to a bully. If anything, it would be useful, I guess, if you kind of wanted your kids to like have more sympathy for bullies. Like if you're like,
that's where I'm trying to figure out. I like the idea of like teaching kids that, you know, even bullies get bullied, or just like this whole concept of you don't know the full story of the people you don't know. There's more dynamics there. That's a really complicated idea to tell a child, no matter how great and perfect the tie-in Bible story is. And I'm not saying this isn't. It's fantastic. But like that's a really high level concept of saying like, you know, you don't know how others live.
Yeah.
And you like what you don't know could affect on how they treat you and how they treat each other and how they feel about themselves. But this book I don't think says that at all.
Well, that really echoes back to the first bully book.
Yeah.
And so is it like was someone like, let's tell a similar story but make it a lot less icky?
A lot less intense, or
yeah.
Or
it'd be like, and I think like, you know, like what if it ended like, you know, she gets out the pie and then like the last line is like the bully with the backwards cap goes, yeah, my mom drinks a lot of apple schnapps. And then it ends.
If one of the kids just starts crying and then the other comes
just starts crying,
or
like you're like,
there must be something going on at home, and like that ends.
But no, but it ends. Like it doesn't expand upon it.
What she should have done.
I guess the other one.
What she should have done. She gone. It's like, well, if I've got all these cubs hanging around in trees, let's talk about someone else who was hanging around in a tree. And then she talks about Judas, who was kind of a bully himself, and he ended up hanging from a tree at the end of his story.
At least I didn't make it that dark.
Yeah, and like wasn't like, you know, Caiaphas and all them, like kind of the too tall and the smirk of the group?
What if the book ended with Scuzz being crucified?
Yes, I think it might be too tall getting crucified.
No, it's weirdly Scuzz. I can't explain why.
I guess it would be weird if they made the bully the Christ figure at the end of this Berenstain Bears book.
Right. I mean, he is reborn somehow, but you know, he has a crown of whoopee.
He does have a crown of whoopee.
I don't want to make this offensive, and I'm really trying not to, so I'm not going to go any further.
Comes up with a spear and like stabs him in the side.
It's an apple branch.
This is not the In Easter book. This is just a general bullying book. So
I'm just so used to being on holiday episodes. I'm sorry.
Thumbs up, thumbs down. Where do we come with it if we had to make a call?
Mark first.
Oh, wow. Pressure.
I'm just going to copy whatever you do, so your decision is my decision.
It's the majority. Hey, I'm going to give it a thumbs up because, it's a good gateway to a lot of other conversations.
That's true. You can start talking about the Joseph story. You can start talking about the Donny Osmond and Marie story.
You just start talking about Tim Rice.
Rice and his questionable lyrics.
60-year career as a lyricist.
Michael Donovan. It goes on and on. Brian?
So I'm also thumbs up. This book is a great introduction to musicals.
Yes. A good I give it a solid thumbs up. If you notice, a thumb is about to appear.
Wow,
because
that's
my
magic.
computer, for some reason, is like, if you hold up a thumb, I'll make a thumb appear.
Now make a peace sign.
I can do this. I think it does this as well. Yeah, if I do this.
No, there it is.
I raised my hand. Now I have to lower my hand.
There is an AI assistant in Zoom now.
Oh, jeez. Okay, well, in any case, I give it a thumbs up. It's a good place to start talking about. I mean, it's one of those jumping off books. You can read it, but then you're like, all right, well, let's talk about what happened here. What would you have
talk
done?
about your bullies fighting each other?
Yes. Do you know any bullies who fight each other? Who would win? Who bullies the bully man?
Embarrassing Bears and the Flash versus Superman.
I thought he said embarrassing bears. Embarrassing bears.
Berenstain Bears and embarrassing bears.
Yeah. The Berenstain Bears and the embarrassing bears embarrass the Berenstain Bears. Well, that is the Berenstain Bears Stand Up to Bullying. The best book in the Berenstain Bears series, we have decided. There's no lore here. Just that we know for a fact that Scuzz, Vinny, and Smirk are still named Scuzz and Vinny and Smirk. work. Whoopee cap still exists. Too Tall still dresses like a 1920s tough. Mark and Brian, you are two separate human beings who do not live together or have projects you work on together. So if our listening audience is looking for either of you, where can they find you?
Mark, go first.
If you're looking for me, just go take a walk in the park and you'll find me.
Any park in particular? Just
an assortment of parks in South Minneapolis.
Cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's me walking
Let
around.
them know what's good in ice cream these days.
If there's an ice cream truck, I'll be nearby.
I want ice cream so bad right now. I'm going to go eat up some Dippin' Tots.
And Brian, where can people find you?
On your favorite podcatcher, you can find my podcast that I do with Josh Hollis called Center of Weirdness. We cover basically like barely remembered TV shows. We are having an episode coming out on the Friday the 13th for the Friday the 13th series.
Ooh.
Yeah, you might know there's an episode directed by David Cronenberg. We didn't cover that because Josh wanted to do an episode that was based about vampires because the Wikipedia description of the episode said the word vampires 4 times in it, and he decided that meant we had to cover that.
Are you a vampire podcast?
Apparently now.
Okay.
But yes, Center of Weirdness, find it literally any.
And if you want to find me anywhere, you're obviously listening to the show right now. If you're watching on YouTube, congrats. If not, watch it on YouTube. It's fun to watch it on YouTube. You get to see faces. We move around. There's you get to see pages from the book. That's it. I'm pretty animated sometimes. I also have another podcast called It's Del Toro Time that I do with my daughter Willow, and it is about movies and stories, horror usually, but we just did The Age of Innocence. We're going to be doing Nightmare Before Christmas next, so get out your Hot Topic hoodies, kids, because we're going to be skeletoning and sallying all around the town. So check that out. Otherwise, just check out my YouTube, and thank you for listening to this show. You too. Thank you so much for being my guests.
My
Thanks for
pleasure.
having us on.
Always happy. Well, you know what? We will have to do this one day all in the same room.
Well, how's that even possible? We don't even live in the same city, just slightly different suburbs.
We do not live in the same zip code. That is true. We would make Brian come up here, though.
I'm a stay-at-home dad, and I'm okay with that. I have some free time.
So maybe the next time you hear all three of us together, we'll be holding hands or something. Who knows? I don't know how it works. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you all next time deep in Bear Country. Were you trying to say it along with me? Because that doesn't work on Zoom.
I'm just mouthing the words.
I just started mouthing them because Mark started mouthing them.
That's the job. That's what you're supposed to do. I should have said that up top. Please mouth the word.
I'm going to spend so much time in this podcast mouthing. It's going to be great.